Today I'd like to discuss the Timefactors PRS-14. Now, if you've not been into collecting watches for a long time, you may look at this and say, hey, this looks just like another copy of a Seamaster 300. And the answer to that is both yes and no. If you've just gotten into things now, you sort of take what's available on the internet for granted. And if you roll back the clock a decade or two, you'll find that Eddie Timefactors brand sort of got the ball rolling on making homages to old, historically significant military watches. Because for the most part, prior to him really getting involved in this, which probably goes back to maybe the early 2000s, they weren't really very valuable. Rolex Milsub, military issue Seamaster 300s, things like that, were maybe in the few $1,000 range. Very few people knew about them, and very few people were interested in them. And even probably up in the 90s, a lot of watch companies had no interest in really revisiting their back catalog too much, except for maybe like Patek Philippe, etc., continuously pushing their 70s Gerald Genta designs. But in around 2005, Eddie Platz released this watch. And again, at the time, to my knowledge, no one was doing these kinds of things. And again, you have to keep in mind that even a military issue Seamaster 300 at the time wasn't terribly expensive. But he produced this watch for relatively little money. I believe it probably retailed for maybe US $300 to $500, and not surprisingly, it sold out quickly. I believe he tried to stick to the original def stand military specifications, and interestingly enough, this watch was made in Germany by Fricker. Now, I believe prior to Eddie getting involved in them, no one knew what Fricker was, and is a German watch manufacturer. And he showed that you can have a made-in-Germany watch that is well-made. And if one thing you can say about this watch, it really is well-made, aside from one particular flaw that I'll get into. So when this watch was released, it sold out, I believe, pretty quickly. And slowly but surely, watches like this, and probably even more famous, his Dreadnought, which was a very large dive watch with fairly original aesthetic, except that it used Omega's Ploprof handset. Once that was released and sold out, everyone on the internet found out about it because its secondhand value skyrocketed. And I think that's what started getting people interested in Timefactors, and more people got involved, and I figured they thought, well, if I keep buying his watches, they'll go up in value too, etc. So that sort of got the ball rolling, where everyone was talking about these watches, and then this came out. And it did pretty well too. Now, interesting features it has. I believe it uses an ETA 2824. It's a made-in-Germany case and watch. It followed the Seamaster specs. It had good lume, had lume on the bezel, an acrylic crystal, and acrylic bezel insert, rated to 300 meters. And interestingly enough, it apparently used the crown mechanism for the Dreadnought, which was rated to much deeper than 300 meters. Unfortunately, I believe the story is that the crown threads on this are a bit too shallow, and they would tend to strip. I bought this, I don't know, third or fourth or fifth hand, and I believe the seller said the crown was fine and everything, but when I got it, it was already feeling not so good, and in a short period of time, the crown stripped. And I've had this in storage for quite a while, and since I've been making a bunch of videos talking about homages and things like that, I thought it'd be interesting to pull out and discuss, because it doesn't have, I think, that much presence on the internet, especially as far as videos go. So incidentally, you can still contact Fricker, and they will actually service it and repair it, and the prices are reasonable. It's one of the 1,000,010 things I have to do that I've not done, but hopefully one of these days I can do it, and when I get it back, I will wear this proudly. Even though I don't really buy watches anymore, and especially I'm not really interested in homages, but I really do want to emphasize that it's unfair to paint this watch with the same brush that you would paint any other homage that's being released nowadays. Because I really believe that if this watch and its ilk were never released by Eddie Platz in the 2000s, you probably would not have the kind of industry that you have now. I think he was not necessarily single-handedly, but I think he had a direct impact in not only influencing everyone and their grandmother to start their own watch forum boutique brand, but also I think there was an influence on getting the large watch manufacturers to start dipping into their back catalog, especially as far as sports watches, especially in the case with Omega. And that really is something that you can't take lightly. That's a pretty significant contribution to watch collecting. So hopefully, if anyone didn't know before, they do know now. And if you see a watch like this, or a Dreadnought or something like that, you'll appreciate the history behind that watch, because I really do believe watches like, as I said before, the PRS-14 and the Dreadnought really did change the way watches are viewed and sold online. And that's about it for this video. And as usual, thanks for watching.